I am very curious because you've been in this for decades. I think you wrote. Did you write your first book in 1976? Is that right?
Well, I started my first book when I was 19, and it was published in 1978, 45 years ago. Psilocybe mushrooms and their allies, which is I studied taxonomy, created taxonomic keys. On the Stropharia it's a family that contains 3 genera: Stropharia, Psilocybe, and Hypholoma or Nematoloma. These are all, sister species. This is why it was called Stropharia cubensis. Then it became Psilocybe cubensis. Stropharias have an annulus, a ring on the stem. So, yes, I started very young. Most people know the story. My brother John inspired me, and then my friend Ryan's father found my brother John's book, Altered States of Consciousness, and burned it, and that really inspired me when I was 14 to take up the subject. And I wanted to impress my brother John, and he came back from Colombia and Mexico with amazing tripping stories, and I was 14 years of age. He went to Yale, so he was part of his training there, so to speak. But let me just put this in. We're talking about the media and films and books. What are these? These are stories. These are narratives. And indigenous cultures through millennia, these stories, have been told and retold generationally, passing on knowledge. We have new media to tell these stories. We have the internet, we have books, we have, films, etc. But the songs and the legends and the tales that were told over generations were the media of those times. So I feel, for myself, and I think I can include Julie on this, is that we are voices today who are we're in a long lineage of experts, of psychedelic experts that are carrying this knowledge forward. What's unique about psilocybin mushrooms, to put it in perspective, and I mentioned this yesterday, we only know which mushrooms are edible or poisonous from the people who've eaten them before us. So that's true with plants. That's true with frogs. Some frogs are edible, some are deadly poisonous. And so what's unique about mushrooms is how ephemeral they are. They're only in your viewscape for a few days and they rot. Whereas animals and plants are in your viewscape, in your event horizon constantly. You see them frequently. And so you have a familiarity factor. With familiarity, you have confidence in whether they're friend or foe and how to deal with them. With mushrooms that come up, some can feed you, some can kill you, some can heal you, some can send you on a spiritual journey, and they disappear for a year. What was that? Or for several years. And so the cognoscenti in indigenous cultures that were experts, mycologists, and I really like to give a shout out to Maria Sabina and especially Valentina Wasson also. Both these women, Maria Sabina was a shaman, everyone knows that, and maybe people don't know that Valentina Wasson was a Russian doctor, but they indeed were mycologists. They could go into the wilds, into the woods, into the fields, and find mushrooms and be able to safely identify many of them. Now, there's over 14,000 species identified in a genome of over 150,000 estimated, in a kingdom of about 2 million fungi, most of which have not been identified. So it's not like they knew every mushroom, but they knew enough to be able to collect them and give them in ceremony or medicinally. And so these 2 women are really the pioneers that just catalyzed this movement to bring it to us today. So I feel like I shepherd this responsibility, being a powerful voice in this time. But in 1975, when I attended my 1975, I attended my first mycological congress. There was a photograph I think someone showed. I had really long hair and a really long beard. I went through puberty really early, really early. So when I went to these congresses and whatnot, I was treated like a leper. I kid you not. I walk into a crowd of people, and it's like there was this a force field of repulsion. And there would be like a circle of 20 feet away from me. Whenever I walk up to a group of people, they would distance themselves, fearful that I was interested in magic mushrooms. That confirmed their fears. But fortunately, Dr. Daniel Stuntz, the University of Washington, because I was very interested in taxonomy, and they were surprised constantly to be confronted with psilocybin mushrooms. He had studied mushrooms for 40, 50 years before I met him, had never seen these psilocybin mushrooms, and suddenly they're everywhere. And it's because of wood chipping, landscaping in the 60s, in particular, using decorative bark around buildings. And then when everyone went to Mexico, and there are some psilocybin mushrooms are rare, but liberty caps were fairly well known, but they were hard to identify as well for many mycologists even, because they don't bruise bluish. Most of the psilocybin mushrooms are purple round spores and they bruise bluish. Liberty caps do not. They grow in pastures. And so when Dr. Daniel Stuntz realized that I had embedded myself into the subject, and would find going to libraries, I couldn't find many of the references. You go to the bibliographies, all of you know this, you look at the bibliographies, the references, you find a reference, oh, I'm going to look up that reference. And you couldn't find them because all the books in the libraries, the papers have been razored out with anything on psilocybin mushrooms. So I went to Daniel Stuntz saying, I need this reference, this reference, this reference. And he's going, wow, this guy's pretty learned about this subject. And so he took me into his private library at the University of Washington Botany Department. And so I spent many, many hours. I joined the Pacific Northwest Key Council. They elected me as vice president of the Key Council, which is a great honor for me, my first being elected into a group. And I led, there was about 40 or 50 of us that were writing taxonomic keys to
It's literally
mushroom
I'm sorry.
species.
I'm sorry, Paul. I think your time might be up. I'm not sure what's going on. That's all the time we have today. I'm using my psychiatrist voice. Can you tell?
Okay, I think I'll stop there. I think
Do
that
you
was a
do you
signal
have
for
a
me to
clip?
stop.
Do you have a
Pardon?
clip to show? Is that why it got dark in
no,
here?
there's no clip.
I said,
no.
do you have a clip to show,
No,
or did it just
no.
get dark in here for
No,
fun?
No. I think somebody's
have
leaning
nothing
against
to
the
do
light
with this.
switch.
This is not me.
If anyone's leaning against any light switches, thank
All right,
you
we'll keep
for unleaning. Should we just continue even though we're all
Yeah, I
sitting in
think
the
so. I
dark?
think
That'll
so.
be fun.
Mics are working. Oh, and the journey, and you should be coming out of the trip right about now. How is it? That's about it.
Okay, I think I'll stop. That's a good time. I thought it was a signal for me to stop.
No, she was joking. I don't know. It was a. I
Okay.
think- no.
So, well, I think that was my beginning, and then I had some heroic journeys, and
Yeah.
I think a lot of us. I always like to ask, and this is going to be a fun question to ask this audience: how many people in this audience have not tripped on psilocybin mushrooms? 7, 8, 9, maybe 10. 10 out of 250. You're a minority. Oh, I'm so glad I mentioned that, because I do want to mention one other thing. In innovation, and this is very much one of the epiphanies that I've had, and it's not a big one, folks, everyone sort of knows this, it's so important to protect the minorities and minorities of opinion. It's the minorities of opinion that drive innovation, not conventional wisdom. It's the edge runners, the people who push the envelope, the people who are different, the people who are strange, the people maybe alien to your religion or what you're used to. They're outside of your comfort range. But when you think about the giant leaps in science, and exploration, it is always the edge runners, the minority of people that push the envelope. And so I'm a blend of being a liberal and a conservative. I'm a conservative in many ways. But conservatives want to conserve, supposedly, traditionally, the safeguards that have gotten them to where they are. They feel safe, it's insecure. Well, the people who are on the margins, who are pushing the envelopes, are challenging to the safety net that's been created by conventional wisdom, religion, etc. So this is really a shout out to everyone who are minorities racially, culturally, sexually. We need you. You are the vanguard of innovation that has propelled our societies into the future. So all of you who feel marginalized, from my point of view, you are the great heroes of this movement. You're the ones who are leading the way by your courage and the fact that you are different. I'll stop there.
Thank you.